What's up, guys? I am here in the Honda Center in Anaheim, California, and I'm going to announce the main event for UFC 300 right now. It will feature Alex Pereira defending his light heavyweight title against Jamal Hill. Alex Pereira is the first fighter to become a champion in both the middleweight and light heavyweight divisions of the UFC. It took him the shortest period of time in the history of the organization to win his middleweight title, and it took him the fewest number of bouts to win a championship in a second weight class. He is an all-action striker with incredible power, and 7 of his 9 MMA wins have come by knockout. He is violent, he is scary, and he will be taking on Jamal Hill, who is the former light heavyweight champion who never lost the title, but vacated his belt after tearing his Achilles last year. In his last bout in defeating former champion Glover Teixeira, he landed 232 strikes, which is the most strikes ever landed in a UFC light heavyweight fight. He is the first Dana White Contender Series alum to win a world title. Like Pereira, he is a world-class kickboxer with serious power. He has won a performance bonus in each of his last 4 fights, and 4 of his last 5 UFC wins have come by knockout. I can guarantee you that this fight's going to be an absolute drag-out war between 2 massive world champions that are also 2 of the nastiest fighters on the roster. So there you have it, UFC 300's main event.
Is there no one else? Is there no one else?
What's up, fight fans? Eric with Lunar Visuals MMA here, guys. Bringing you a UFC 300's predictions and commentary video. We've got a lot to get into today. I'm going to try and keep it short and simple, but man, have we got ourselves a card. Alex Pereira and Jamal Hill, the main event of the UFC 300 was finally announced. It's going to be an all drag-out war, as Dana has said. I know a lot of people did not like the decision to go with that fight, but what else do they have, right? Everyone else has either fought just recently or injured. So this is what we got, and I think it's a great card. I mean, just look at this thing from top to bottom. Star after star, knockout artist after submission artist, like just back and forth. It's a stacked card. It's 100% going to be the most cinematic UFC experience we've had in a while, I would say. Knockouts and submissions back to back. It's going to be an amazing, amazing card. I'm excited. Hope you guys are. Hope you guys enjoyed that Dana White, little edited Dana White announcement. I had to add a little cinematic touch to it so it would get a little bit more hyped up than an Instagram video. I had to put a little bit of music over it, a few cutscenes from the crowd and stuff, but
That's fucking illegal.
I'm not going to waste any more time. Let's get into it. We're going to start on the undercard. The undercard being Deiveson Figueiredo and Cody Garbrandt. This is not the first fight. This is like the second or third fight on the early prelim undercard, and it looks like a fun one. I mean, you know Cody Garbrandt's always the guy to give you a stand and bang fight. I mean, when does Cody Garbrandt go to the ground? Practically never. I'll fact check myself right now. 0 submissions. I mean, we could even pull up his takedown attempts, but why even waste our time doing that? This guy doesn't go to the ground. He just doesn't. He's a natural on the feet. He's a natural. And that's where his strengths are for sure. Deiveson, he's got some very impressive skills on the feet, but at the same time, he's probably going to have a little bit more of a strength on the ground for sure. Very good base of grappling. He does have a good base of grappling in jiu-jitsu. I mean, it's pretty obvious for this guy, right? I mean, he was a world champ at one point at 125. And he didn't get there by just becoming a one-dimensional fighter. And you know, Cody, you could say Cody, he was a champ for a small time as well, but they both had, I guess you could say, short title reigns, you know? Deiveson Figueiredo had a short title reign, back and forth with Moreno a good bit, and then Cody Garbrandt, I think he defended his title once, or maybe not even that. He won the belt against Dominic Cruz, lost to DJ Dillashaw, and so on. They're both on weird trajectories right now. Don't have a belt. We used to have the belt, though, and both coming off of a win or two. I mean, it's like the universe needs to put these guys together. It's a great matchup. 2 former champs going at it in a setting like UFC 300. I think it's going to stand for a little bit. I really do hope we don't see Cody get submitted. That's not the fight fans want to see, but it could definitely happen. He's never been submitted in his MMA career, but let's look at Cody's takedown defense. That's a big thing I want to look at. He's got an 80% takedown defense, so he can defend takedowns quite well. That is something something I did not know about him. Wouldn't count Cody out, but here I'm gonna go with the world class Davison Figueiredo on the ground over Cody, who probably hasn't had an aggressive grappler thrown at him before. But I think this is a fight that'll probably get pushed 3 rounds. I think Cody's obviously his best way to win is on the feet. Davison's best route is probably on the ground. He tried to stand with Moreno, who is a more balanced guy overall, not even specifically the best striker in the world. So I would say, and I think he's getting up there. He's like 36, and Cody's 32. Cody's in that last few years of his prime. He's got about 3 years still. He starts phasing out, getting older towards 35. The odds are lining up in Cody's favor right now to me. I want to go with Cody on this one. 78% KO rate is not. 78 is a high number, especially for that low of a division, that low of a weight class. 78% is high, and that's something that should not be overlooked at all. And if he can't KO him, I think Davison could easily sub him if he can get a takedown. But I'm going to go with Cody on this one. 78% is not a number you play with. That's a high percentage. Anyways, on to the next one. Now we got Cody Brundage and Bo Nickel. Cody Brundage is a test for Bo Nickel. Like, I say this a lot, every new fight is a test, I say, but this guy's probably got the most extensive resume out of all the guys he's fought so far. 3 out of his 10 wins submissions, 5 out of his 10 wins are KO, been decision once, so he's got a high finishing rate so far in his entire career. So he's got a good thing going for him. Young guy, around the same age kind of as Bo Nickel. So we've got a guy who's really a guy like Bo Nickel. We got a guy like Bo Nickel who's really being pushed by the UFC. He is getting on all these interviews, getting pushed everywhere, media-wise. This guy's a future problem in the middleweight division. He's shown that, too. He's a former collegiate D1 wrestler, former Dana White Contender Series vet 2 times, and has shown up time and time again when he's had to perform, when the lights are put on him. So all the signs from Bo Nickel have been check mark, check mark, check mark. He's been checking off all the boxes he needs to check, right? But the one thing he's missing is experience in the octagon, the professional octagon, which is the UFC, right? He needs some more names. And Cody Brundage is a decent name. He's leveling up. This is just one step. And as long as I think he utilizes his base, which is some wrestling, I think he's got an easy win here. Cody Brundage, he's got a 50% KO rate. I think that's probably his best way to win, but I don't see him easily KOing a guy like Bo Nickel who has such strong and high fight IQ. He's very smart the way he fights. This guy doesn't waste any time, and he's bum rushing you any chance he can. And you only got 3 rounds, right? This isn't a 5-round fight. Bo Nickel has basically kept all of his fights within the distance, I think. None of his fights have gone the distance at all. Let's see this one. I think Bo Nickel's going to probably utilize his ground game and sub this guy within the first 3 rounds. I think it might go to the later rounds, though, being Cody's probably going to be expecting it. He's probably going to be expecting some takedowns. He's probably going to be expecting a submission from Bo Nickel, but I think Bo Nickel's going to push it to a 3rd rounder, probably get a sub, and if not, a decision. So I'm going to go with Bo Nickel on this one. It's kind of easier for me just because when you've got a guy that they've been pushing so hard like this, and you got Cody Brundage, who, I don't know, I'm never counting Cody Brundage out. Don't get me wrong. This is kind of a similar situation as the Raw Roses and Christian Martinez fight, I think I was, where Raw Roses was just propped up to beat this guy and sub him. And he tried to take him down, and once he couldn't take him down, he got pieced up on the feet, and it didn't look good for him as a new and upcoming star, but he's around like 18, 19 years old. Bo Nickel's a little bit older, got a little bit more experience in wrestling background, and he's got great striking. For young as a vet as he is in this game, he's got great striking. So I'm going to give it to Bo Nickel on this one. Cody Brundage, I'm not seeing... he was on a 3-loss skid. That was in 23, right? But he has been staying active. I think it's going to be a very competitive fight. He fought 4 times in 23. 1-2, lost 2. So I think it'll go a little bit more than the first round. I think it'll go 2 or 3 rounds, but Bo Nickel will probably end up subbing him. Let's get on to the next one. Now we are on Jim Miller and Bobby Green. Man, Jim Miller, Bobby Green. Come on now. Come on. These guys, they're both vets of the game. These guys are freaking legends of the game. Both been fighting for 15, 20 years. I mean, Jim Miller's a little older than Bobby Green, but these guys are both up there, and they've been in there with a good bit of fighters and been around for a long time. Jim Miller especially. Jim Miller, 20 of his 37 wins coming by submission. That's a 54% submission rate. More than half of his fights end in submission. Don't overlook that. Don't overlook that at all. And he's not a big KO guy. He has KO people. 7 out of his 37 wins are KO. Like, again, I'm always going to bring these stats up because numbers don't lie most of the time. This guy has got a deep resume. He's fought good people from back in the early days all the way to the top level competition that we're facing now, where he's facing a lot more technical people, less reckless people, and he's still performing well at the age he's 37. He's broken the 35 curse where he's not winning fights at all. He went on a 3-fight win streak, lost to Alexander Hernandez, then got 2 wins against Jesse Butler and then Gabriel Benitez. I mean, this guy is just putting in work nonstop. He's fighting, let's see, twice in 23, twice in 22. He's fighting at least twice a year. And for a guy his age, that's a good thing to have going. If you're fighting at least 2 times a year, you can't rush it. That age, it's kind of hard to get out of bed at 37, I bet, when you're fighting everybody for a living for the past 20-something years. But this guy's got it. And then when you look at Bobby Green, the guy bounces back from losses and just goes on these skids. I mean, he's coming off of a loss to Jalen Turner, but right before that, he had 2 losses. He had the Islam Makhachev loss, the Drew Dober loss, the Jared Gordon no contest headbutt, and then he bounced back with the Tony Ferguson submission triangle choke, arm triangle, and then the Grant Dawson KO in round 1. Grant Dawson is a freaking top prospect contender, and he just put him out in 30 seconds. And then Jalen Turner was competitive first round, but Jalen Turner has a long reach. He's like 6'3" in the lightweight division, which is practically unheard of these days. And he got put out bad. He did. But that's how Bobby goes out most of the time. He goes out on a shield because he's got a weird style. And if he gets hit, he gets hit. But he bounces back. He always has. I mean, you just look at his history. 2 losses, 2018 and 2019. Then he comes back and gets Clay Guida, Lando Venata, Alan Patrick, 3-fight win, and then he goes and loses to Thiago Moses, Rafael Fiziev. Then he comes back and beats Alaquinta, and then Nasrat Hakparast. I mean, he just comes back and bounces back. The losses don't really impact Bobby too much. They don't. He's always bounced back from his losses no matter what. And who better to bounce back to than Jim Miller, a real veteran of the game who's seen just about everything he can see. But I don't know. Has he seen a Bobby Green yet? That's why it's such a great fight. That's why it's on UFC 300, right? You got 2 vets, 2 different kind of styles, right? Bobby's more of a KO artist, flashy KO artist, but he's a little bit balanced. He's got a 31% submission rate, 34% KO rate. His submissions and KOs are around the same number, and then he's got 10 decisions. So, I mean, like, he can go in there and he can last, even though he's gone out early in a lot of his fights. I think Jim Miller's strength is the ground here, but Bobby Green's got some decent ground game. I mean, we've seen he's improved quite a bit. I mean, it wasn't always the best, but he's improved. I mean, it's. I think it's gonna be a slugfest. I think that's what we're gonna see, and I think if Bobby gets caught, taken down, that could be the fight for him. But if this fight stays on the feet, I'm going with Bobby Green. But if Jim Miller can utilize his great ground skills that we know he has, I say Jim Miller takes his fight. This is one of those things where it's like Jim Miller if he gets to the ground, Bobby Green if he stays on the feet. It's just one of those ways I look at it, because most fights, it's like you're deciding whether you want to go to the ground or you want to stand, and then there's like clinching. But come on, like most of these fights that we're watching nowadays, you're either standing or you're on the ground doing something else, right? Or trying to get the takedown, right? And you got to break up these fights and how you think it's going to go. Bobby doesn't traditionally go for the takedown. Jim Miller goes for takedowns. Jim Miller's got a shit ton of submissions. So I see this being a stand and bang fight, but at the same time, I don't think Jim Miller's going to come 20 plus years of fighting, and this could possibly be his last fight. And him go out on a shield against Bobby Green, hell, that's not the worst thing the MMA fans would want. But like, do you want to end on a win, or do you want to end on a slugfest decision loss? You know what I mean? Bobby Green wins on the feet. Jim Miller wins on the ground. I'll keep it at that.